everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And I'm excited because our guest today, I think, is going to be such a fun conversation. So I'm not even going to do any intros or even talk about what's going on in the news, because we're here about living healthy and with happiness and a happy and full soul. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Anji Kat. Welcome.
Hi, Julie. So glad to be here.
I am so excited. As we were talking before, I've wanted to have this conversation with you for quite a while now. So yeah. I'm excited that this is happening.
Yes, finally.
Yes, right. I would love for you to share a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Well, thank you. So I live in beautiful Colorado in the Denver metro area, and I have been in the health and wellness industry for 25 years in a variety of formats. And it was interesting how I came to it is that I loved being a teacher, and I ended up with a job in human resources. But the gal in the cubicle next to me was a wellness coordinator, and I saw what she got to do for a living, and I said, I want your job. So I got my master's degree in health promotion and wellness management, and have been working in the wellness industry ever since. And, you know, my passion is health and wellness, and my journey has been really evolutionary. I think for most of us, when we get into it, we get really passionate about fitness and food and nutrition and all of those things. And a pivotal moment, I think you and I've talked about this, is that a pivotal moment for me was in my 40s when I was exercising. I was at my lowest weight. I thought I was my healthiest. And I went and had a lipid panel done, and my triglycerides were flagged as low. But my doctor couldn't tell me anything about it. He just said, oh, it just must mean that you're really healthy. But after further research, I discovered that what that means is malnutrition. And upon further investigation and looking into that, it really made sense that I was eating far little, even though it was super clean. I wasn't getting enough fats, and I was exercising too much, and I put myself into overtraining syndrome. And that took about a year or so to recover from that, which meant I couldn't do anything. I really just had to rest. And it was a wake-up call for me, because I realized I have just been killing myself to be healthy, which is an oxymoron, right? Who does that? I think we all get that message that you have to keep pushing, you have to keep striving, you have to do this perfectly. And I was exercising tons. I was teaching lots of exercise classes. I was eating an incredibly clean, whole food, plant-based diet, but I wasn't getting enough fats. And here's the thing I noticed is that when we don't get enough healthy fats in our diet and our triglycerides are too low, people think, well, that's not such a bad thing. What are triglycerides used for? Hair, skin, nails, and hormones. So if you're not getting enough of that, then your hormonal system, your endocrine system is completely out of whack, which was true for me. So that was a year that I really took stock and said, what's more important? What is really health and wellness about? And from that point forward, it shifted my approach. That and the fact that the thousands of people that I've coached as a health coach, none of them wanted to, they wanted to get healthy and lose weight, but none of their, they, at the very foundation of it, they all knew what to do. The issue was life management, right? It was so much more than that. So it was interesting to me because very rarely did I ever coach anybody about exercise and nutrition. It just never happened that way. It always ended up being something about their relationship, their job, their stress, their finances, all of these different things that have an impact on the choices that we make, how they schedule their life. So that just really shifted everything for me in terms of how I approach my own health and wellness. I think people are shocked to find out that I'm at my healthiest and lowest weight right now, and my best blood panel. And all I literally do is eat that whole food plant-based diet, and I walk and I ride my bike outside. Everything is simplified. I do not kill myself. I do what feels good and what is joyful movement. And that's what I helped my clients with as well. So, and there's of course a spiritual component in there too that I think is grossly missing from a lot of our health and wellness. So that's kind of it in a nutshell in terms of how I arrived at where I am today.
You said quite a few different things that I really want to unpack because there are some beautiful things that you mentioned. But the first thing that's like screaming in the back of my mind is, the idea that you're killing yourself to be healthy. And there's this idea out there that has to be hard and that,
Yes.
you have to sacrifice and you have to either starve or give up everything that you enjoy, or it has to be like, hit routines in the gym, even though you're not, all this stuff that isn't necessarily anything that you might possibly like. And
Right, exactly. Exactly.
yeah. And I just love that you mentioned that, because it's like, oh, you mean I don't have to try so hard? It shouldn't be that difficult to be healthy. And that's our natural state. And I think a lot of people miss that when you say.
Oh yeah. I think part of it is, unfortunately, we are living in the information age and there's a lot of information out there and it takes a lot to weed through it. I'm paid. I have training in this area. So I am trained to be able to decipher all of that. And what people forget is that, or may not even know, is that the longest longitudinal study about those who have lost weight and kept it off, you would be surprised at how simple their health and wellness protocol is. It is literally walking or doing recreation outside with bike riding. And they just focus on a lot of vegetables and, they engineer a lot of movement into their day. It isn't that difficult. And it's funny, you mentioned about, the HIIT exercise programs. And I can't tell you how many people would come to me and say, I've got 8 weeks. I just started this 8-week program at CrossFit or whatever, high intensity. And I said, I'm going to ask you one question. Do you intend to continue that once you've reached your goal weight? And they just kind of had to stop for a moment because they hate it. They don't want to do it. They're just doing it to get to an end result. And I said, I can guarantee you, if you're not intending to continue this for the rest of your life, it's not going to be sustainable. And there's a better way. And I'm not knocking those types of workouts. I think they can have their place. But if we're using that as the panacea, the magic bullet that's going to get us there, I think we're really off the mark. I really do.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that that's such a beautiful point, though, is that unless you plan on, continuing to do that, we wonder why people lose weight and gain it. It's because you go on this diet and then all of a sudden you get to your end goal. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, you go back to all your old habits, but you didn't change how you're being or how you're showing up in the world. So how do you expect to keep the same results if you haven't changed how you're going to show up?
Absolutely.
But yeah. And like you said, I love that idea though, because like I don't have any problem with like HIIT or CrossFit or anything like that. If you enjoy it, I don't.
I'm right there with you. I don't. There was a time I was. But I think that's also part of it, is that we have this expectation that whatever exercise gets us the results now, that's what we have to stick with. And it's like, I don't know any 80-year-olds that are going to be in the CrossFit gym. I'm sorry. Or would want to be, So yeah, I think it's going to continue to evolve. Our needs are going to continue to evolve,
And that idea of perfection that you touched on too. Oh my gosh. Like, where did we get this idea that we have to do it's all or nothing?
Right.
It's like this pendulum swing. And I love to share the story about how when I was starting to eat healthy, and I did not eat, there was a period of time in my life where I just did not take care of myself at all.
Sure.
And I was close to death. And, but when I decided to, oh my gosh, I actually want to live and I want to live in this body, I need to start taking care of it. I started researching. That's how I really got into health and wellness. And, it was the blueberries. And that was one thing, was like, okay, that's a wonderful berry that I need to incorporate in my diet. And if it wasn't an organic blueberry, then I wouldn't buy it.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And I understand that, those are much better for me, grain berries, as opposed to, a standard blueberry. but it's still 1,000 times better than the Kit Kat that I would have bought. And I would go from not buying the organic blueberry to the Kit Kat. It's just
Right.
like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just so much want to improve ourselves, and we want the fastest way there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything in our culture is fast. It is consume it now. It is, I want results now. And we've lost touch with that idea that things evolve in their own pace, and there's joy in that. You know, that you know, it's okay to celebrate those small wins. Like, what's the next healthiest step? That's what I tell my clients is, what's the next healthiest step? If you decide that your plan A was to go to the gym 3 days a week and you didn't make it, what's plan B? Okay, plan B is going to be, I'm going to do yoga on my mat. You know, same thing with nutrition. If I want to change one thing, what's the first next step? Rather than trying to do it all. You don't need to go and clean out your entire pantry and break the bank, you know? So yeah, I do think that there's that. And I'm sure that media plays a role in that. You know, we compare ourselves, we're trying to get, you know, accomplish things. And it's just this vicious shame cycle. We start it, we feel good, you know, but we're trying to get to 100 miles an hour from zero. We have missteps, and then we beat ourselves up because we're not doing it. And it's never ending. And so if we can just take a step back and just go, what are some 1 or 2 healthy habits that I can start today, and let it build on that.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, something that you said that I really agree with, and that's kind of why I've started to step away from things like personal training and nutrition coaching, is people know what to do. They really do. It's never been about, okay, eat broccoli instead of ice cream. You know, it's never been about that. People know intuitively I mean, not everyone. And of course there are certain, you know, health requirements for issues and things like that. But most people know what to do. Drink more water, sleep, you know, well, stress management, things like that. But it's always been about mindset, and that, like you said, that spiritual component that people just, it's missing. If you are not connected with that, then no matter what you do, I don't care. You're not healthy.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. And I think when I talk about that spiritual connection, what I'm looking for is, and what I try and encourage people to think about is, when you are making the healthy choice, when you are having a really great healthy meal, or you're getting your exercise, I want you to check in with yourself and notice how you're feeling and how you arrived at that moment, right? Because most of the time we make those healthy choices for ourselves when we are relaxed, when we are stress-free, when we have given ourselves space to think about intentionally what's the next step. But because we have such a rapid pace lifestyle, we don't give ourselves that space, you know? So what's the point of meditation? Meditation is not only for stress relief, but it is for you to sit down and be still, and listen to your body, listen to intuitively, because as you probably know, especially with exercise or diet, that everybody's different. Everybody's got different likes, different things that they have access to or don't have access to. So there isn't one size fits all. And part of the figuring out what works best for you is to get quiet enough to go, what does resonate with me? Maybe you don't like blueberries, but you do like broccoli.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I love that too, because, you know, when here's a funny story. When I was working at a place where, unhealthy food was, you know, it was every single day we were celebrating something. So there was a cake, or somebody would bring in fresh, delicious bagels. Like, I'm talking gourmet, or these donuts that were like, you know, $5 a pop. I mean, these are, you know, it was hard to say no to a lot of that stuff. And the thing is I had decided that I was going to get healthier. And so I stopped saying yes to all of those things. And I started doing, you know, creating my own meal plans and this. And then there's other people there said, oh, I want what you have. Can you make food for me? And I said, okay, I can do that for you. However, you know, my lifestyle is completely different. Like, I don't think this is going to, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, I don't think this is going to work for you.
Right.
And it's like for a little while, but you got to, like you said, think about like, how is this going to work? Like, I don't eat meat. So for meat eaters, how's that,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think, and I think that's a part of us taking ownership, that's great that they wanted you to make some food for them, but there's no ownership in that. Right. If I'm responsible for my own nutrition and I've got to figure it out, I have more investment in that decision. Right.
Yes.
That's part of it, because we're always looking for somebody else to do it for us. And not that coaches or, personal trainers and, other experts in the field, they're absolutely there to support you. But ultimately, my job as a coach is nothing unless you're invested in it. Right.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. I mean, I'm not a meat eater either, but, the evolution is that I was a meat eater, and then I became not a meat eater. I wasn't eating hardly any fat, and that's what got me sick. So I went back to eating meat. And then I decided, you know what, I think I'm ready to go back to, I feel better not eating meat. And so I've gone back to that. And even still now, it's like, if it's really cold, I eat seasonally, and sometimes based on my constitution, I will have some meat, but it's very rare. But not everybody's like that. So it is about, asking those questions of yourself and saying, what is it that I want to evolve to?
Exactly. Yeah. And, you brought up such a wonderful point as like in our society, we get really stuck in labeling people and things and, oh, you're a vegetarian. Oh, you're a vegan. Oh, you eat paleo. It's like, I would never, people ask me all the time, oh, so you're vegetarian? I said, no, I just don't eat meat. Because if I ever want to eat a hamburger, I don't want to have, I'm going to do it.
Oh, the labels I agree with you. The labels are just, it's another way to divide us.
It
right.
Is, yeah.
And I said, I had this conversation with some friends recently, and I said, food has become the new religion. It's like, oh, I'm paleo, and I'm this is how I eat, and this is the only way to eat. And the interesting thing about it is that if you look across all of those different types of diets, there are commonalities. And if we can focus on the commonalities, keto, paleo, vegetarianism, and veganism, what do they all have in common? Produce. So wow, look at that. We all eat fairly similarly. There's just some little tweaks here and there. So, and like you said, it's, depending on the stage of life that you're in, your health needs, it may change a little bit. But I think the point is, what's the intention? You can eat meat, but are you intentional about where it comes from? How it was processed, how it was raised? I think that's a key piece too. How does it impact the environment? So that's the spiritual piece too, is that when I get centered enough, it feels good to me to be able to say, I'm choosing these things because not only are they healthy for me, but they're produced in a healthy way for the environment. They're, they support the community, so it becomes more than just, this is what I'm eating.
Yeah. And also, like you said, you're more invested in it. So, this actually, I don't know why I feel compelled to say this, but I saw a video. It was like a TikTok video. Not that I'm on TikTok, but it was somebody was saying, and they were using water as an example. And they were saying, if you sell water for $1 and you don't sell it to your friend for 50 cents, they will go somewhere else and spend $2 on a bottle of water. Because you didn't sell it to them for 50 cents. And I thought about that and I was like, that's interesting. We do have this expectation of, like the friends and family discount and things like that. However, if, it's that energy component behind it, like money is just energy. So how much are you investing? Like, are you willing to, if you're willing to spend $2, why wouldn't you spend $1 from your friend?
Right. And it doesn't mean that you have to break the bank. If you're a good financial steward, I've had this question numerous times, as I'm sure you have too. Well, what if I can't afford organic produce because I'm trying to feed a family of 4? Any produce,
Yeah.
wash it, make sure, do the best that you can with what you have. But just because you can't, invest at that level, invest at the level where you are right now. And then eventually you'll be able to invest more.
Well, it's funny too, because once you make these healthy choices, it's amazing how all of a sudden the money starts showing up somehow. And then all of a sudden you can pay for, more organic and fresh produce and things like that.
Mhm.
But, like you said before too, it's not available to everybody. So
Yeah.
to expect yourself to magically get this,
Right.
it's not realistic. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. But like you said, if you've got to work with what you have.
Right. Well,
So
yeah, I mean, that gets into a whole nother conversation about socioeconomic factors,
yeah.
in terms of accessibility. But the other piece that comes into play with that too is I'm a big advocate for eating seasonally.
Me
And
too.
we're fortunate in this country where we've got some green belt growers that can provide us with, juicy papayas in the middle of winter. But you know what? Our bodies really aren't evolved to eat that
Mhm.
way. And so I that's something else that I discovered for myself too is, I practice Ayurveda, and that features prominently in my nutrition and the way that I manage my energy. And it's so liberating when I start living in concert with the natural cycles. And so you eat what's in season. When, it's a full moon or a new moon,
Mhm.
you adjust your energy. The season of the year, I'm not going to be as active in the winter as I might be in the summer. And it gives you some fluidity, and you
Mhm.
feel more in tune, right? You feel more in
Yeah.
tune with nature and your own body.
That's such a wonderful point too, because one of my mentors is always talking about the seasons in your life.
Hmm.
And, it's, but it's even like that with your body to expect to go full force
Hmm.
all the time. And it's just not natural. Everything is seasonal. Absolutely everything. That's why we rest too. I mean, it's like even in a 24-hour day, there's times when we're more awake and times when we're not, and just
Yes.
little things like that. So I love the idea of eating seasonally as well, because yeah, your body just naturally absorbs things better that way. But what
Hmm.
about I'm curious what your thoughts are, and this is totally not off topic, but
I
what
love
are
it.
your thoughts about organic versus local? Like, because I know that sometimes
Hmm.
if you're going to eat seasonally, then you don't have to worry about that so much. But a lot of people are more concerned about, like, well, it needs to be organic, but as opposed to local food. What are your thoughts about that for those people?
So, my first initial thought is don't overthink it. Wherever you want to get your produce from, get your produce and start there. If you're not currently getting enough of that produce, just get some.
Mhm.
I do think that local is wonderful because you get to know your farmers, you get to know where that produce comes from. It is seasonal.
Mhm.
And again, I think it's a matter of what's available to you. Up here in Colorado, I can tell you there's not a lot of local people that are producing tons of produce. I mean, it's there's going to be some seasonal stuff, but if I, want something else, I'm going to need to go to the grocery store for that. So, I think there's value in organic. Here's what's interesting. I had a friend that this was years ago when I was eating meat, and she had a farm, and she had
Mhm.
some cows that she raised, and she would sell that. You could get them butchered for your meat. And I had asked her at that point in time, I said, are they organic? Is this organic certified beef? And she said to me, they're not, but here's what you need to know. She said the process that people have to go through in order to certify to get organic is
Mhm.
very labor intensive, very stringent. She said, we feed them by all, definitions. We feed them organic. They are organic, except for the one little vitamin pill that we have to give
Mhm.
them. And so she said, we're small. We're a small farm. We just don't have the bandwidth to go through all of those hoops to get to organic status. So it is interesting. And that's where I think talking to your local farmer to find out a little bit more about how their produce is raised, how their livestock is raised, can glean a lot more information, because just because it's organic doesn't necessarily mean, or that it's not organic doesn't mean that it's not healthy for you.
Exactly. And then also, like, if it's coming from halfway across the world, how long has it been picked? I mean, how fresh is it at that point? So
Right. Exactly. I mean, it spoils if you get frustrated like I just like, oh my gosh, I just bought this 2 days ago. It's already spoiled, But, I think what we're talking about here too is that, organic is great, because we're reducing our chemical load. And I think that is important. However, we also have to look at the industrial agricultural complex, and how is that impacting the food choices that we have, So
Exactly.
I think, again, you can get down into the weeds with all of this information. And if that's your jam, great. But if you're really just wondering what fruit is the best fruit to buy, whatever fruit you buy. That's where you start. Just buy some fruit, start getting that into your daily habits, same with vegetables. And then as you continue to evolve, you can dive down some of those little avenues and find out what resonates with you. Are there better choices for you?
I love that.
Yeah.
On that note, we need to go to commercial break. So we'll be back in just a moment. All right. As I mentioned, we do have to go to commercial. But before we go, I want to say hello to everybody who's watching us live. As always, you're very much appreciated. And we will be right back after these commercials.
Are you someone who is struggling to move forward because you suffered a loss? Maybe you're even finding it difficult to complete the most basic tasks. Are you looking for a way to start enjoying life again without feeling guilty or the resistance to do so? Spiritual life coach Sarah Stockham saw a need for people who haven't learned how to grieve without putting their entire lives on pause. And so she created a program that solves this issue called Choosing Life Right Now. This program is simple and you can do it on your own. If you are ready to learn how to feel your grief while still being able to smile, to honor the sacredness of what took place as a loss, and yet still continue to live with joy, and if you'd like to take care of your whole being with grace and love, then I'd like to invite you to experience her new program called Choosing Life Right Now. Sarah is currently offering her program for the promotional price of $77, but it won't stay at this price for long. To learn more, check out her website. The address is on the screen.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And today's special guest is Anji Kat. Let's bring her back. Oops. There we go. Let's try that again. Like, pew, pew. We're at a club.
It's a beautiful thing.
Anyway,
Yes.
as the commercials were playing, I was thinking, you were telling me before we started that you have something coming up soon, and I would love for you to share about that.
Thank you for asking. Yes. So next Thursday in the evening, I'm going to be hosting a live Facebook masterclass. It's called From Weight Lost to Soul Found. And it's really to introduce my signature coaching program, which is the From Weight Lost to Soul Found program. But also I want to just share with people, some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over 25 years of coaching people on how you can make wellness easy.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's not just about, like you say, broccoli and burpees. So I'll be taking questions. I'll be going through some of those key components of the program. And I'm not going to hard sell people, but I would love to invite people to come find out more about it because I just happen to have some slots available in January for new coaching clients. So it's a way for me to share this message because I really feel passionately about the fact that we are all lost in this information. It doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah, I love that. And if people can't come on next Thursday, this is your website.
Yes.
So what else can people find there?
Oh gosh. Well, I have some subscription programs that people can sign up for if they're looking for, yoga support, spiritual support. I do have some signature programs there. I will have a blog. I have regular events going on, new moon circles. And of course, any of the times that I'm doing webinars, that's where they'll be posted as well.
I love that. So you've mentioned the moon a couple of times, and that's something that I'm actually really interested in. And it's something that a lot of people think, oh, that's all woo woo. And then my thing is, okay, yeah, look at what it does to the ocean. And if we're mostly made of water, what do you think that, it does to us?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So this was also a transformational next step for my own well-being is, learning a little bit more about these new moon circles and full moon circles. I had a very good friend who's a massage therapist and a shaman, and she started doing these new moon circles at our yoga studio. And I was curious about what that all meant. And as I did more research on it, the idea again is that it's living in sync with nature and cycles. So what's interesting is that, most of these native tribes understand this. And around the time of the new moon, which means that, we can't see it, right? Because the earth is in between the sun and the moon. That is usually when we're at our lowest energy. And the tribes used to have a situation where the women would come together, no boys allowed. They would go off into a tent for 3 or 4 days. And when you're synced up with the moon cycle, that is usually when you're supposed to be menstruating because you are at your lowest energy. It's a time for rest. It's a time for taking care of yourself. And then the full moon is really the reverse of that, is that's when we are at our fullest energy. We are celebrating. Everything is illuminated by the light of the sun, the moon. And so when I started to figure this out, that, that's when I'm at my lowest energy, I started to pay attention. And sure enough, I just was like, why am I so tired all of a sudden? Yep, I checked the calendar and it's about 3 days, around the new moon. And when I started paying attention to that and planning my life a little bit more around that moon energy, it made a huge difference because now I've given myself permission. I don't have to push full throttle all the time. There are nature has built in periods of rest for us. We just have to take them. That's
beautiful. I love how you describe that because, all I thinking about is flow. People always want to be in flow, but
what does that mean?
Yeah, but they fight everything that's natural. So
yep. Being in flow is just like you said, it's periods of rest, periods of activity,
Yeah.
And, I did become certified as a red tent new moon facilitator for women. And so I do have online new moon circles. I have local new moon circles here. And it's a way for us to come together and create that community, which is also part of wellness, which is our social community. So we have our tribe of women. We come together, we rest, we talk, we have meditation time. We might have a theme, but that's where that comes from. It's my desire to teach people about the living in sync with these natural cycles, because it can be a game changer. It was for me.
Exactly. And, I keep thinking too about things like, for example, coffee. And I'm not against coffee by any stretch of the imagination, but, somebody gets tired and I need a cup of coffee. Well, maybe you need to rest or water. Maybe you need some water.
Yeah. Or sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you need some sleep instead of trying to pop the pill or mask the symptom, or, it's kind of like, maybe we should take a look and see what's actually going on and pay attention, because if you really want to be productive, if you really, and we do live in a microwave society, but if you want to have a 4-course meal or a 5-course meal or whatever, then it takes time. So if that's how you want your life to be, if you want to Taco Bell, good for you. But if you want something else, then, you got to work with what your environment is so that you can use it to your advantage.
Totally. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm very sensitive to caffeine. So I can, there are times where I can't even have a decaf coffee because it stimulates me. And it's interesting because I used to be a heavy coffee drinker. And I know people who drink, they would say, oh, I drink at least a pot of coffee a day. And, I found that, again, it's all about paying attention and getting quiet. It impacted my sleep. I did not sleep well. And there comes a point where there's diminishing returns with caffeine. And so we think that, oh, if I'm still tired, I just need to keep consuming. And actually now you're past that point, and it's just going to impact everything that forward, sleep, and then you'll be tired. And then you got to recaffeinate, right? And every single client that I've ever coached to give up the caffeine, I said, look, if you're willing to do this, I can guarantee you'll have more energy when you're done with it. The first week is going to suck because you're going to have headaches. But every one of them reported the same thing. Yes, I had several days of really nasty headaches. And after that, I could not believe how my energy went through the roof. So, again, it can be useful, but how much? We're mindful of how much we're consuming. What is it for? Is it because we're just trying to push through? Well, then that's a deeper question. Why am I so tired that I feel like I got to push through? And, so it's looking at more things that are impacting rather than just saying, oh, I'm just going to do this quick fix.
Yeah. You brought up something that I love to talk about, and that's the pushing through aspect. And something that I've really discovered recently is the importance of, for example, most people struggle with technology. And so they'll just try and push through and make something happen. But when I was starting to learn different forms of technology and things, I learned to walk away. When I started to get frustrated or upset, walk away and come back. Go do something fun and come back. And almost instantly, it was like my brain reset. What was hard was not any longer. And it's like, instead of trying, it's just like every time I tried to push through, it still wouldn't work out. And I would just get more and more frustrated. And it seems to me that seems how it is for most things, not just technology. I'm using that as an example, but
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think there's a couple of different components to that, from my personal experience, is that, first of all, when we push at anything, when we're pushing at exercise, let's take that as an example. If I'm continuing to drive my exercise, guess what? Exercise in and of itself is a stressor on the body. And what happens in our body when we have a stressor? We release cortisol. Now, it may not cause you to gain weight necessarily, but it can impact your ability to lose weight. It can impact all the other physiological functions of your body. And it's detrimental. So it's not to say that you shouldn't stress your body, in terms of cardio. It's just a matter of how much and how often. If you're doing it all the time, it's not good for you. And everybody, what's that saying? Everything works well when you unplug it and reset it.
Exactly.
Including you, right? So it's the same thing with everything. So there's that physiological piece, but also I think it's deeper than that, that when we allow ourselves the space to come back and take a break, it's that principle of what you resist persists. If I keep pushing against something, it's going to continue to push back. But if I allow myself a break and I can come back to a place where I'm in the flow, I'm in surrender, and I'm just kind of going with it, it does tend to work out because nothing is pushing against us now. So yeah, I think that's part of, fortunately, the wisdom of being nearly 52 years old is, you learn that, oh gosh, I'm not going to get any further down the path if I push. I'm just not.
Exactly. And that's the opposite of being in flow,
It really is. Yeah, you're not in flow because, and if you think about flow, like flowing down a river, you're not paddling upriver. What happens when you try to paddle upriver? You're going to burn yourself out.
Exactly.
Don't do that. Go down the river.
Exactly. No, I love that. I love that idea too, about the not pushing it so hard, because, and then I was thinking too about how, simplifying everthing, because, with wellness, we just want to add more things in instead of maybe taking some things out. Why not make it simple?
Exactly. We have all these different systems and programs and plans, it doesn't have to be that difficult. It really isn't. For example, meal planning is one that I love to help people demystify. I tell them, you don't have to go through this whole process. It can be as simple as saying, I'm going to have a bunch of ingredients pre-prepped, beans, rice, cut up vegetables, and I'm going to have them in containers in the fridge, and I can just put them together and mix them up. I can do a stir fry. I can do a chili. I could, so it doesn't have to be, difficult. It can be just one simple task. You don't need fancy meal planners. You don't need a fancy, meal planning technology, or, what are those meal kits, if that makes it easier for you, great, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Same thing with exercise. You don't have to have the exercise manual and the tracking log and all of these complicated exercises. I was telling a client recently, she said, I really want to do strength training, but I really don't want to go to the gym and I don't want to do all those exercises. I said, so here's one exercise, the clean and press. You bend over, you stand up, you do a bicep curl, you press it overhead, and you repeat. You're hitting so many different muscles with one exercise. She's like, oh, wow, that's efficient. And so that's what I try and get people to do, is because when it's simplified, you're more likely to do it.
Exactly. People underestimate how little you actually have to do. It's like we think, oh, well, I don't have an hour to work out, so you don't go at all. Right. Or for me, as a personal trainer, when COVID hit, all the gyms shut down, and personally, I don't like working out in the gym. That's never been my thing. I love training people and I'm good at that. But even the way I train is different. Like you said, I'll combine things because I'm like, I want you to be able to do this on your own. You shouldn't necessarily need me forever. Right. Unless you need me for accountability. And then that's another thing.
Right, exactly. But even then, it's all about getting yourself to a place of sustainability.
Exactly.
Can I sustain this behavior?
Exactly.
There's a lot of pieces that fall into place in order to make that happen. And our brains are such that when we are approached with a very complex, convoluted, confusing task, our brain says, nope. Don't want to do that. I want something simple. If it's simple, brushing my teeth is simple, brushing my teeth while doing squats, simple, and I get it done. So like you said, doing little habits throughout your day can have greater impact than carving out 90 minutes. Totally not necessary. Totally.
Well, that's the thing too, is great, and I've just been on this huge kick about movement versus working out.
Yes.
I am definitely all for working out. That's a fabulous thing. But if that's all you're doing, I'd rather you incorporate movement into your life as opposed to working out 3 times a week for 45 minutes or an hour.
Right.
If you're sitting behind your desk and not moving,
right,
how healthy are you?
Right. Exactly. Well, I think they've proven that there were studies saying that if you sit for 8 hours, but then exercise for 1 hour a day, that's still the amount of time that you're sitting is the equivalent of smoking on your body. It's not healthy for you. So you're absolutely right. It's those micro movements, those micro habits that's what actually helps people maintain their good health.
Yeah.
And they're easier to implement too. I went to a yoga conference years ago, and we had an instructor that, we just did basically forward folds with some deep breathing. We may have done some chair poses. We did that for 5 minutes, and he stopped us and he said, I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling right now. And the point is, you do not need 90 minutes because you're already feeling the effects of it in 5 minutes. So that's the key piece, is letting people know that you don't have to have 90 minutes to have immense benefits.
Exactly.
5 minutes sprinkled throughout the day can have better benefits than one 90-minute session.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I have a dog and I work from home. So he goes out quite often because I want to get outside of the house and get away from my desk, and we go on long walks, and he gets a ton of outside time, but that's my time too. It's not just for him.
Right. Exactly. He doesn't know that.
I'm like, all right, you do your business and I'll just be outside and enjoy listening to the birds, because I live in Southern California. So
right.
It's beautiful here 99% of the time, and I can go out whenever. And that's the beautiful thing too. It's like you're being in nature, and there's something that's just so calming about it that people completely forget.
And that's part of wellness too. I mean, that's the environmental wellness. I know for myself, I'm like you. I'm not a gym person. I loved teaching in it. That was fine because I love the teaching. But for me to go there and exercise, I haven't had a gym membership in years because my preference is to be outside walking amongst trees and creeks and that kind of thing, because it calms me. It's restorative, but I'm still getting my movement and my exercise, So I do think that that's, critical. But that being said, again, it's about access and what's available to you. So we get latched onto that and go, well, I don't have a nature trail near me, so I'm just not going to do it. You can dance in your home to your favorite songs. You can dance while you're cooking and waiting for the microwave to go off. You can do squats at your desk. There's all kinds of little ways that you can make it work, even in the throes of winter when it's too cold to go outside. That's not an excuse. It's just a matter of being more creative about what brings you joy.
And then you get to use that brain of yours, and creativity. It's like, okay, what can I do? This doesn't work. It's like we just get to a point and we stop, and it's like, oh, that's the end. It's like, no, there's other options. And, it's one of those things that, like with COVID, it's really changed the way people show up in their lives. But if you have gotten over that hump and you can start thinking about things in a new way, like, how can I do this now? It feels good.
Right. Well, and give yourself variety. It's what I tell my clients, put as many tools in your toolbox. If you only have one tool, then you're going to set yourself up to fail, because if your tool is, I got to be outside during the summer, the rest of the year, what are you doing? Nothing. Yeah. Right. But if I have all these different choices that I can choose from, that sets you up for success. So it literally is engineering your life so that the healthy choice is always the easiest choice.
Yes. I love that. That's such a good point too. It should be the easiest because, that's just how our brain is wired. It uses so much energy, and people don't really realize that it's lazy in the fact that it doesn't really want to think. Like it literally, it takes so much of our energy just to work, and that's why we put so many things on automatic pilot, and things just become, reactions as opposed to thoughtful responses, because our brain doesn't really want to work. But the more simple you make it, the easier it is. Then, hey, you keep your brain happy. I always play tricks with mine.
Yeah.
Like, I'll play around and be like, okay, there was times when I worked out, I would go to the gym because I had specific goals in mind that I needed to go to the gym. And so there's times I didn't feel like going, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go. And if I don't feel like staying after 5 minutes, then I'll leave. And I'm telling you, there are a couple times I literally left after 5 minutes because I was like, okay, my body wasn't lying to me. It was not. But 9 times out of 10, once I was there, I got in the mood and I was good to go, but I had to get there first. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those micro movements can be part of training your brain, that if you go to the gym for 5 minutes and walk around and you leave, that's more than what you did the previous day. And you've gotten your body and your mind programmed now that this is what this feels like, and this isn't foreign, and it feels okay. And then the next time you go and you add more minutes on there. So yeah, I mean, I think that those micro movements can have a great benefit, and to not beat yourself up, because again, every day is going to be different. Every season of your life is going to be different. If you didn't sleep well the night before, oh my gosh, the best thing you could do is give yourself more sleep the next night. So it's not about pushing through your workout, because sleep impacts your ability to lose weight and to maintain your health. So it's all interconnected. The more that we just simplify things. And I think when we simplify it, it's easier to be mindful and intentional about our choices and be present when we're doing them.
Exactly. And it also gets rid of a lot of the other temptations too, because if it's really complicated for me to say, make a meal, I might go hit a drive-through instead because I don't feel like doing this big complicated meal.
Exactly. I just filled my fridge with all this complex, food, and I'm just going to go to Burger King. Yeah. See it happen all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things people like, I bought all this food and then I just didn't eat it. And I'm like, okay, that sounds about right. Or even, like another one that I love too is people, maybe they buy all their ingredients and then they try and do all the food prep the same day. Do it the next day. Give yourself a little bit of a break. You don't have to do it all in one fell swoop. That's a lot to take on for a lot of people. So unless you really enjoy it, break it down into smaller micro movements.
Exactly. Break it down into tasks. Ask for help.
From
family. I see that a lot with women, moms that are just like, well, I just do it all. It's like, you need to have a family meeting, and get everybody involved. Don't ask to, you can ask, but tell them this is what I need, in order for this to work. And it's interesting that a lot of kids will step up to that plate gladly to help out, and so yeah, it really is, take time to think about what's the best way to make it efficient for you, easy for you, so that you will do it. If you've got this complicated recipe, maybe you should start with something a little simpler.
Exactly. So. We are almost out of time. We got about 2 minutes left. I know it goes quickly, doesn't it? So is there any last thoughts that you want to share with the audience, or things that maybe you want to recap?
I just really want to encourage people to just take it easy on yourself. Pick one thing, one tiny habit. Be stealth about it. Simplify your life. We do not need to beat ourselves up over trying to do it all, because you're good enough and you're whole right as you are. All you're doing is you're just evolving. So, I hope that this podcast has been helpful for some, and hit me up on that masterclass. I'd love to see you there, where I can share some more real concrete tips on how you can make it simple.
Absolutely. And can people reach your Facebook through your website as well, or? Perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay, even better. That way they can even learn more about you as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you a bit better and pick your brain.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's, it's great to talk with people who are embracing this kind of approach to wellness. It's much needed. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, and have a great night.
Yes, you do.
And that is all the time that we have. We will see you again soon. And yeah, have a great night, everyone.